All right, we are live. What's up, everybody? Okay, welcome to another session of the Kava podcast, the session that we always host every single Friday, live out of San Francisco. Thank you so much for everybody out there. All right, as always, I'm joined here by Monica. Unfortunately, I ran out of Kava, so I don't have any Kava for tonight. So usually I'll take a drink and salute all the Kava drinkers out there. But for tonight, there's no Kava for me tonight. But if you're watching this right now and you're drinking some Kava, take a cup for me. But nevertheless, appreciate you guys as always. We have a great show planned for you guys, and let's get to it. Let's get it.
What are we arguing about?
A man is gonna do what a man wants to do.
All on your wrist. Make you my wife, you no longer my bitch.
Let's get it. My name is Will. I'm the host of this show, the number one Polynesian podcast in the world.
Dripping in Versace. All these other hoes trying to copy.
Women tend to bounce around in relationships. They can't stick and stay in a long-term relationship.
Again, don't agree with this. Just
So let's say, are you still in it? Are you still in it?
no. So you're basically saying I'm a whore.
This content is not suitable for the children under the age of 18 without adult supervision. Please be advised.
So I just wanted to take the time and make this video to apologize to absolutely nobody. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the session on the Friday nights, live out of San Francisco. You guys already know my name is Will. I'm the host of this show, number one Polynesian podcast in the world. Of course, I'm always joined with Monica, but we have a great podcast tonight. We have an interview tonight by somebody that works with the organization of Taulama. And I'm going to have her join in right now. And we're going to go right into it and get to interview the person and go over the history of Taulama. And let me bring in Lucy Latu.
Hey, Lucy.
How you doing, Lucy?
Hello, good evening.
Hey, hello.
Can you hear me?
You can hear us? Yes, we can hear you clearly. You can hear us, okay. Lucy?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great.
My JBL speaker's working for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Lucy. This is Lucy Latu, and she works with Taulama. And, for the folks out there, Lucy, Taulama, what does that mean in Tongan? Is there does it symbolize anything?
But before we go right into that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, Lucy, can you just give a quick intro for everybody out there? Obviously, there's a lot of people. You're doing a lot of great work, but there's going to be a lot of people watching this right now that may not know who you are. So just give yourself a quick intro, and then we'll go right into it with Monica's first question. Go ahead, Lucy.
Darn, I was hoping that I could skip that part and we can go straight into talking about Taulama. But thanks for bringing it back around and for including me in it. My name is Lucy Latu. I am Tongan American. Born in Southern California, raised in here in San Mateo, and I work with Taulama for Tongans. It's been around before. It's a nonprofit, community-based organization located here in San Mateo County in San Mateo. It was established in 2000, actually technically 2000, but everyone says 2001 for whatever reason. And it was started off by because of cancer research. And what occurred was there was a nonprofit in Utah, and then the Cancer Institute through UC Irvine was trying to do research on Pacific Islanders and cancer, and they were doing it on Samoans, Tongans, and Chamorro, but they wanted two organizations per group, so 2 Chamorro, 2 Tongan, 2 Samoan. And at the time, it was through the governor's office in Utah. There was a Tongan organization there, but finding the second one was a challenge, and it was a requirement for the research. And so it was with through Liami Afeaki in Utah that everyone's scaled the nation looking for another Tongan organization, and found Leafa Tamoipeau, who's the executive director, and they were schoolmates at Tonga High School. But Leafa's much older than he is. So the reason for the cancer thing was because it was really, and we know it today, is that cancer is really, really prevalent in our communities, in our Pacific Islander communities. And so it started off through cancer work, and then it just grew until now. So we've been in existence for over 20 years, where we just focus on health, providing health trainings, outreach, education, resources, materials, programs to the start off as just the Tongan community, but it has expanded to be the Pacific Islander community within San Francisco, Greater Bay Area.
Okay. All right.
Just a little bit, but yeah, thank you.
No worries. Lucy, first and foremost, I'll say thank you so much for making the time. Appreciate you making the time to be part of the Kava podcast and have an opportunity to interview you for all my subscribers out there. But take it away, Monica.
Yes. Thank you so much again, Lucy. And I guess Taulama, does it mean something in Tongan specifically, or is it just kind of like a name? How did we come up with that?
It's the word.
Okay.
It's just the word. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Taulama is Tongan. We were bored and we just thought of what words could we think of? Taulama actually means in Tongan beacon, like a guiding light, a lighthouse. What a lighthouse would be for the ships out in the ocean. For Palangis, because we don't have lighthouses in Tonga or in Fiji or Samoa. So that's what Taulama means, to a beacon or be a guiding light. And so that's what Taulama, the organization, has molded itself to become for the Pacific Islander community, being that resource, being that guiding, navigating entity for the Pacific Islander community when it comes to health and health education and health outreach.
Right. And so I know that Taulama started in 2000. And in the beginning of its peak, how or which community, was it in the Bay Area? Did they start work in LA or?
So Taulama specifically started here in San Mateo. And although the very first purpose of it was to be a nonprofit, so that way we could be part of this research that UC Irvine was administering regarding cancer and Pacific Islanders, it did blossom into something bigger, because at the same time, within San Mateo County, many of our Tongan leaders within this community saw the disparities and just the gaps in accessing healthcare. People in Tonga, in Tonga we have a hospital, right? But the hospital isn't the same. It isn't used in the same way that it's used here in America. In Tonga, we have the hospital, Viola Hospital, right? And people go there when at a state of emergency, if you're bleeding or if you're in excruciating pain. We don't even have refills. That's not you go wait all day till you see a doctor to get the medication, but you do this every month because that's what you need to do to get. And so that is the limit of our medical. That's what hospitals are for us in Tonga. You come to America and then it's preventative care. So it's before you even get to the point of bleeding or being in excruciating pain, you're supposed to have been maintaining your health so that way it doesn't reach that point. And so it's a very challenging idea for our people. And so that's why many of us wait until we're in excruciating pain or bleeding before we go to the hospital. We're gluttons for punishment, right? And no, seriously. And
hey, Lucy.
Yeah.
In Tonga, they don't go to the hospital because we only use one drug in Tonga for everything. You ever heard of Panadol?
Panadol. Yeah, Panadol. Apparently, yeah, and apparently
know
it's
what
an
that is.
Africans have Panadol because even what's his name? Burn. What's his name?
It's like ibuprofen. I think it's like ibuprofen,
Yeah.
right? It's similar, but we use that for
It's
everything.
Tylenol. It's like Tylenol.
Yeah, it's like Tylenol.
Yeah,
like Tylenol.
Oh,
And
Lord.
the okay, here we are in America. What they would say like America Lahi, and we
Yeah.
have like Advil, ibuprofen, Tylenol. You have all these over the counters, but no, our parents, grandparents, they will wait till someone flies back from Tonga to bring Panadol, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like literally Advil. It is Advil. It's not
Yeah, it's
even
Advil.
you know.
Not the Advil, but I get that. Yeah.
You know, Tongans. Tongans and their superstitions. You know?
No, it's not even really super. It's just comfort. I think it's not even super.
Yeah. It's what we
Because-
know. It's what we know.
Yeah.
Familiar with. It's familiarity.
But we
you know?
don't. But we don't ever try to expand our knowledge. You know, like we're in we're in America. Like we could go beyond just Panadol. But I'm just saying. You know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you could bring the islander to the America, but you can't take the island out of
You can't take the
islander. You know.
Right.
And I get it because you know we our parents or grandparents came to this big humongous country and for a better life, right? That was the intent, but it could be overwhelming, and I totally get it. Like I don't know if I could ever be like my mother, where she came in the 70s by herself as a female Tongan against her family's wishes and you know what they wanted, and start a life. Like that's unheard of, and that's so maverick of her, you know, because that's not normal. Like even today, not many. There's especially as a woman, as a Pacific Islander woman, like you don't do that. We don't do that. It's only men are allowed to do that. We don't do that. That's why we have our coming out age of 21 instead of like 15 like Latinos or 16 like Balangis. We wait till we're old and gray hair, and then we want to come out.
Wait, 21 is young. It's not that old.
I mean, compared
to
to
15 and 16, it's old. It's like a whole like lifetime.
pretty ancient, I'd say.
What was that?
And I think that's, you know, talking about your mom and her journey out here to the US, I think it's actually pretty amazing. I think you're right about that. Actually, I know you're right about that. And sometimes when I hear a lot of the older generations talk about their journeys out here to the US, it kind of makes me feel like, man, like what a transition. As we sit here and we talk about that, you know, the Advil,
it's Panadol.
Panadol that's continuously used in a hospital, right, in Tonga, and then coming to this place here where, you know, there's just hospitals everywhere, preventative care everywhere, and it's kind of interesting. And so, you know, back in 2000,
And we have health insurance.
And health insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I wonder, like, you know, in Tonga, like, how is it that is the chronic conditions out here, has it worsened for folks out here in comparison to Tonga, which is why we have the insurance system out here, which is why we have so much preventative care in some senses, but that maybe that's a different topic at hand. I always wonder about this, but for, you know, I guess Taulama started in San Mateo, and during that time in the beginning stages, what were some of the programs and some of the things that were offered in, you know, the early 2000s?
So, you know, of course, the leaders within the Tong community was, let me just start off with that, was that one was a doctor in Tonga, but not one, he couldn't be a doctor here in America because that's like a whole slew of education that he would have to redo. But that was Tawelangi Kefu. Lefa partnered with him, with Melieni Talakai, who is actually a public health nurse here in San Mateo and worked for the county, San Mateo County, for many years, but has now accepted a director position with Ravenswood Health Center, which is in East Palo Alto. And she lives in East Palo, so it's like such a huge it's an amazing feat to have one of our own become a director for a health center is amazing, and a federally funded one too. She, and then like some of the head of church, the leads of the church, or like Phi Phi Kao and stuff like that. So what was happening was that many of our Tongan community were getting sick, like breast cancer with the women was insane. It's like, that's all it was. And it still is insane, especially considering that it's a preventative type of cancer compared to like many others that are not preventative. But, having to educate the women to get the breast cancer, breast screening mammograms. It's, it's a taboo subject. So it's been very challenging. So our humble beginnings were starting with providing interpretation and translation services, because we have all these resources available, but no one understood what they were for, and especially if it's a concept that is foreign to us as Tongans or Pacific Islanders, like having the hospital and not using it for preventative care in the islands, but then having to come here and having to adjust, because many of our Pacific Islanders they still use the emergency room as the access point, which is not what what the Palani want us to do. But that's what we're doing. That's what we do, like in Tonga or in some, and so it's not that we're trying to cause, but those of us who were born and raised or educated here in America understand the funding pathways, and we understand like why emergency care is so expensive, because it's emergency care because you're supposed to be life or death, but they use it as like, to go get medication or to, and like as if what you should be using like an outpatient clinic to go when you go see your regular doctor. That's what you're supposed to, not the emergency room. But it's really hard to sway our into changing. It takes I think it'll take a couple of generations, because it's a foreign concept to even get healthcare. Again, waiting till you're bleeding or in excruciating pain before you get it done. But they saw that the language barrier was a huge, and it still is a huge issue even now. And then just being able to have the language or have things explained in our native tongue. But I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Tongan language, for instance, is one of probably the most. It's beautiful, but it's a very elementary language compared to like English. It hasn't really evolved as much as English has. English was Latin, and then it went through all the things that it went through, all the phases. So it's expanded its vocabulary. There's a lot of terms, especially in medical terms, that do not exist in the Tongan language, and so therefore the translation has to be done. And it's really challenging to find people that actually speak Tongan and are able to understand English comprehensively, English and Tongan, to make those translations, because it ends up being, you don't translate the word because it doesn't exist, but you end up having to translate the concept of what the word is, Right. And like mental health, for instance, is just a whole new ball game when it comes to the Tongan language. So it's evolved some, but it takes generations to the evolution of English took many generations and years, like hundreds of years, right? So we're in our infancy language wise compared to the English language. But even though that's the case, I still believe that our language is so beautiful in the sense that a lot of it comes with emotion. Like there's a lot of I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of times where you want to say something in English, but it would mean so much more if you said it in Tongan, but you can't say it to English speakers because they don't know what I'm saying. But like the emotion behind the emotion, like there's English doesn't have many of those phrases or those ways of communicating where it's the emotion is what you really get from it, at least for me. And so that people can say like, oh, you guys are so, no, but we're still a beautiful language and a culture, so I don't care what you have to say.
Do you understand?
I might be biased.
Yeah, what would be an example of a word that we speak in Tongan that you won't understand the emotion behind it if you translate it in English?
I would say like Honga iya. Poloto
Say that
honga
again.
iya.
Honga
Honga
iya?
iya. Mhm.
Oh, I don't know that word. I don't
So
know what's
that. Oh, you don't know that word? Okay. So
honga iya?
in
No.
essence, it means like if I were to translate it into English, it would be like humbled. But it's beyond that humble. It's like the emotion that it invokes, the feeling, the humility, because it's beyond just being, oh, thanks for bringing me a gift, or thanks for coming to visit me. It's like see, and that's why it's hard to say it in English, is because you miss out on the emotion. But it's like this, not a feeling of indebtedness, but just feeling of complete and utter appreciation and gratitude and humility. It's like the Tongans would use that word honga iya like in a speech, when they're just like, if it was a gathering for a graduation, and parents would they would use that word, for instance, to express their gratitude to all the people that came from near and far to this occasion. It's beyond just humility. It's just appreciation, gratitude, and humility, and like this huge love for the people that are there. It's all of that wrapped into one. And you can't see, like in English, it's just like, oh, I'm humbled that you're here. But that's like, it's like dry. It's like one, but that's one word that I would, or I mean, I guess maybe it's because there's a lot of responsibility that sometimes comes with the words that we use to express ourselves, like whakaapapa, like respect, right? But we know that if I were to say that, if you were my brother Will, and then if I said, and you were lecturing me about being whakaapapa, like between us, because I did something like that the girls aren't, like, it would hurt me more because you're lecturing me about whakaapapa, because I was that whakaapapa to you, or your boys or whatever. It would be more scathing to hear you say that to me, because I know that I have hurt you and I have disrespected you in a way that brother and sister do not disrespect each other, and it's taboo. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's why I say, like, there's the emotion behind our words that it's lacking in the English, I believe. And I've looked up synonyms for very many words in the English language, but it still does not measure up to the feeling that one gets when we express ourselves in Tongan, in my humble opinion.
That's true. I think the one word that comes to mind for me is like when fatongia.
Mm-hmm.
If you translate that, fatongia means like it's
Obligation.
Obligation, but you feel it differently when you hear it in Tongan. Because if you speak in English, it's all obligation, duty, but you don't. But
burden.
That's just, burden. But there's a difference when you hear from it. Like that's your responsibility.
It's a responsibility, but it's one that's you carry with pride, and
exactly.
it's one that's most times it's one that's afforded to you because of your position in the family, or because of your role in the family, and that in itself comes with a lot of honor and responsibility. It's like that with like the Bible verse that says, to whom much is given, much is expected or required. It's the same thing. It's like fatongia. But fatongia for us is not like, it may feel burdensome, but it's not. We don't look at it as a burden. We look at it as an responsibility and a sense of pride.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like the English translation would be burden, but that's not how we interpret it and how we feel about it as Tongans when we say it.
Wow.
Yeah, fatongia. Yeah.
That okay. That I learned something new.
Yeah.
Because it's like kids just in general, like any race, they can't wait to become an adult.
Yeah.
With fatongia, it's like it's a rite of passage when your family finally recognize you to, and even kavenga.
Oh, kavenga is a good one. Kavenga. Kavenga. It's similar to fatongia.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think kavenga would be, it's like you're part of, I guess it would be like you're part of the fatongia, but it's your share of it, and again, it's still carried with a sense of pride and honor, because you're not the first of your family to carry this kavenga, but you're a continuation of the family line that carries this guy. Because I'm not the first. I won't be the last. It's like my aunt may have done that carried that gabinga, or it's like generations before my ancestors carried that gabinga. So it's just passed on to me. And depending on what your position is in the family, like if you're the eldest or the youngest, middle child, and then in our families we have like 6 or 7, so then it gets a little complicated.
Right.
I'm sorry. Monica, you're supposed to like Lucy.
Oh, we want to keep going. Don't stop. No, this is great.
I think I should have been in the studio so that way you could pinch me whenever I'm like going.
No. This is great. I'm learning so much, especially about our language and just how real it is in certain words, right? I would have never thought that actually meant more than what it actually meant, because I'm an English speaker. So words just mean words to me a lot of the time.
No, you aren't.
I'm not all the way, but I can't say that I'm the best. And I hate speaking it because I don't speak it very well. I don't. Not as well as
or English.
Tongan. And sometimes English.
You're pretty good at English.
What are you left with?
I know, right? No sign language here. So
I don't think the middle finger is sign language.
Oh, like that, Monica?
No, she's an angel. She's an angel.
You're by angel, Lucy. No, honestly, Lucy, this Taulama, I am a part of Taulama, and I have been for, I think the first time I actually found out about Taulama, that was from Seta, and that was when Seta was with Taulama. That's my family, and we did this tobacco. It was tobacco retail licensing when it was first new. And we went around in Burlingame, and we kind of just went to the different stores and kind of checked out were they selling certain tobacco products and stuff. And from then on, I was I had this fascination. And then it became more, fascinating to me, because as a Tongan, I never knew that there was a nonprofit really that was for Islanders. I understood I understood what a nonprofit was, right? But I never really understood that there was a nonprofit specifically for Tongans, or, also we're pretty open, I would say, for all Polynesians. We have great partners when it comes to that. But, and as soon as I heard about it, I kind of hopped on it, because we're just, I think in San Mateo, generally, Tongans are pretty large in San Mateo, but outside of San Mateo, I think California has one of the largest populations of Polynesian people, if I'm not mistaken, in the US. But I just never really fully understood a lot of things that I know now until I got into working for Taulama, and not even working, but just, being a part of the movement. I don't really see this as a job. I just see this as something that is needed as a member of the community, just by blood and by, who I am as just Tongan, right? I am a part of community, and I think that it's really important.
Sounds like you're saying that it's becoming your fatongia versus.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. That's spot on. And I know that the Taulama has done this wonderful work for breast cancer, right? And I definitely wanted to shift into it. During this time, from what years to what years was Taulama working with the community, and what was that like?
So Taulama, we have been fortunate in that we've worked with the community with all health, but different aspects, because that's how grant funding is done. Is that, as an organization, we'll apply for a grant, and that grant, based off of what its focus would be, is what we would do the work towards. So one of the big big grants and also longest running grants that we had was with the Susan G. Komen Foundation, not Susan B. Anthony, Monica. And that was around breast cancer.
This is what I do.
Sorry.
This is what I do.
What happened?
Oh, no.
So it was for 5. Oh, it was for like 5 years. We started off with 5 years, and so it was because, and the reason for the desire to apply for this grant was because so many of our women were dying from breast cancer, and so many are getting diagnosed now. But again, it's a preventative cancer compared to other types of cancers. And the fact that our women were getting it and then dying and not getting treatment until it was stage 4, which is just, it breaks my heart, because how many families were without a mother or a grandmother or sister, because of not getting it checked sooner with mammograms. And then the government itself started to make it become like mammograms become a preventative testing, so I don't know, like when you usually would get, if having health coverage, they would say make sure to get your flu shots, make sure to get your now COVID vaccines, to stay up to, and these are all preventative measures. And so the funding pathways would support that. And so one of those things was breast cancer. And so they had like Every Woman Counts, that whole program initiative where mammograms were being given to women 40 and above for free. They just had to, complete the application, show up. And then if something showed up on their mammogram, then they would have to like connect with a primary care doctor. Before, it used to be you have to have an actual doctor to get referred for a mammogram, but now they've changed that so that way it makes it easier. But the women in general were just frightened about getting a mammogram. First of all, it's a part of the body that we don't talk about, we don't address. Right, yeah. It's taboo, right. And we don't talk. And then the other thing was the actual mammogram itself, the procedure. It's uncomfortable. They're squeezing the crap out of your breasts. Right. And so it's like every reason that a woman, for our women would want to not get it, mammogram, it's once a year, and the different requirements of getting tested or getting this exam done has changed and evolved throughout the years. But I think now at this point, it's become more, it's easier to like nowadays. Once they're going back to like 40 and above, women get a mammogram, starting off with like once every other year. But if you have a history of breast cancer in your family and your maternal side, then they'll increase it to every year. It's easier, and you don't have to go through your doctor it's just self-referral, and that's wonderful. It took so long, but so what our executive director did, Lafa, since she's a woman also, and she was doing mammograms, is that she would round up women in the community, and then they would get their free mammograms done with the African American. I just went blank on what they're. So they used the breast center in Mills Hospital on 2nd Avenue, and they would all go together. Because it was such a daunting experience, and they don't know who's giving the examination, and it hurts, and then afterwards they would go eat, and they would go to Denny's and sit there for hours. But it was a sense of camaraderie. But what Lefa had done was, since it was a 5-year grant, she made it. The campaign was, of course, around women, but then because we're so family oriented, that. Yes, the woman is important. Like moms are the important person in the family. They're the ones that really don't tell the dads, but they hold the family together, right? And so we also understood that we don't do it where it's just like the woman has to carry the burden or the responsibility. It should be a like everyone, like the kids can encourage mom to go get the mammogram. husbands can encourage their wives to do it so that they could be around to take care of the grandkids, kind of thing, to extend their lives. And so she had done a campaign where it started off with like mom, something about like mothers, being still around to take care of the grandkids. And then it turned to like, your mother took care of you, now it's your turn to take care of your mother, just involving every part of the family. So that way it does become a family engagement and family focus, that because we all know historically, and just, it doesn't matter what culture, but the moms are the ones that take care of everybody else, but no one takes care of mom.
Yeah.
Like moms are expected to take care of the kids, the husband, the household, go to work, make the meals, and it's like, who takes care of mom? And then we've seen many times, like when mom's no longer in the picture, how devastating that is to the family unit. We talk about men not being a part of the picture, but when women aren't part of the picture, how devastating that is too. And so that campaign was just encouraging women to do this one. It's a one test on a year, and it's uncomfortable, but it saves lives. And and ironically enough, Lafa, she's in her late 70s, but we started off by doing showing or training women about and talking about like the self-examination, which we won't bore you, Will, about that detail, but yeah, there's a self-examination before you get to the mammogram usually. Nowadays the current requirements, like they stop giving women over 70 mammograms because they feel that's out of the window for women would get breast cancer. Well, Lafa, who's in her late 70s, she did a breast examination, breast examination, because during her shower, and she found a little nub, and it was kind of like painful. So then she contacted her PCP or OBGYN and said that, hey, there's something, I feel something. And she went in, they did the mammogram, couldn't see it, but that's so then they had to do an ultrasound, and then found out that it's actually the MRI is the only test that would actually see this tumor or be able to identify it. And then a few months ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, which is like, it floored me because, I'm like, not that I'm questioning God's intent or his plan, because it's his will, not ours. But I can't help myself but to act like, what the heck, But I did say to her, I was like, well, I'm proud that you walk the walk and you talk the talk. You were pushing for women, to do the examination mammograms, and that's what she lived. She did the and had she not done that self-examination, they would have never found it. And then who knows when they would have, what stage it would have been, because she's lucky in the sense that when they found it, it's like it was 8 millimeters. Wow. Which is really, really small. But it was not even at a stage level.
Okay.
So that was a blessing. So she decided to do the clinical trial, and so with radiation. But it's one day at a time. Still trying to figure out like what's her or what's the cancer or what's like her just being old.
Right.
In the most respectful way, I say that.
Right. And I think that's so. Thank you so much for sharing that. And honestly, I think that's a real thing right now. And it just goes to show that like these chronic conditions are very prevalent in our community, so much so that it can happen and does happen to absolutely everybody and anybody, right? But the fact that your Lefa is up to date and was educated and is educated on this, it was easy to catch this. And I think for the most part, I think what I've heard is like the uncomfortability of like our women like self-examining themselves, or even having, like especially at a certain age, it's not something to, you're definitely not, but the fact is like having these like programs where we as women, right, or even in some senses, maybe there's programs out there for men, but can sit down and talk about it and be comfortable in a setting to just be okay. Hey, this is what's happening now. Let's do this so we can, prevent ourselves from this, or know at least, right? And I think that that's what's so great about this nonprofit and just about programs itself when it comes to health programs, right? Because it's, being well informed about what's going on. And I think you're like so spot on for that, because I think when even now, like there are women that I know that are going through this, and even beforehand, but just this type of education in our community, and especially with the language barriers, and setting that up is just so important. I just, thank you so much for like letting us know about that. And
I had a question.
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious. What causes breast cancer? Is it genetics? Is it the food you eat? Is it maybe a combination of both?
All of the above.
All the above.
Yeah.
It could be there's earlier on in the history of breast cancer and the research that, there was at one point in time, like where, you've had breast cancer in your family and on the maternal side, we're going to do, and then what has happened, it's evolved. The research has evolved. The science has evolved. I mean, we're so much more into like the DNA testing, the different, the general belief or research has proven is that although having other women, because it comes from the mother side, that having women on your mom's side having had breast cancer can be a red flag. But now they do testing based off of like the hormone levels and also like the DNA, and if you have a specific strand, and because it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone on your mom's side will get it, because they've been able to do better research now, and they dive deeper into our DNA and have been able to isolate the actual part of link in the DNA to identify whether or not a person is going to get breast cancer, or whether it's not. It's just they have the regular risks as any other woman. So it depends on who it is, and that's why even now they have this wisdom study where it's like thousands of women, but it's over years of research. Just like when you become part of it, just sending in your mammogram results, and then they just follow you. And this is their research in order to figure out, like, because breast cancer, there's and after Lefa having breast cancer, realizing that there's different catalysts to getting breast cancer. It's different hormones. Like there's the HER hormone. There's like the estrogen. So they've really evolved. It's become so it's amazing, but it's really involved. And there's the environmental factors, where a person grew up, where what they grew up around, like what toxicity, like chemicals or whatever. And then there's others that it's just like it just happened. It's a fluke of nature kind of thing. But there's still so much more research being done, and but it's very fascinating. And I believe that a lot has gone into breast cancer specifically because it is such a preventable cancer compared to many others, and it's one way to learn more, because so many women are getting it, and then figuring out what the different factors are aside from just having family, like being having a family history of breast cancer. There's so many different factors, like, and they're still unraveling that mystery. I was just on a call about it like a couple weeks ago.
I did want to ask something interesting. Like so for this breast cancer, with this research that was done, um, is it, so I know that Tongans usually we use a lot of aluminum when it comes to like our loo, right? When we put, we make our loo, and then like certain item like dishes, we use aluminum to make them. Could that be in strong correlation to some senses of why maybe we have a higher rate, or?
So possibly, and the reason why I say possibly is because
Yeah.
The aluminum foil, I think, just start like it's more recent, right? Than, because in Tonga we use our banana leaves. We didn't use, like, the foil thing was introduced because just recently, but with the prices now, it's like no one can afford foil in Tonga because it's like ridiculous. But and it's like, no, it's 50 baht for like mayonnaise. I'm like, and it's like a small thing. I'm like, oh heck no, I'd rather. I was like,
50.
I'm like, thank goodness I don't like mayonnaise that much.
Yeah, right.
Oh, it's ridiculous. But anyways, but I mean, the factors are endless, because like they're looking at, like, for instance, doctors looking into the environmental factors in Jamaica, because they have a lot of like chemical plants. I didn't even know that, but they like in Jamaica, Tobago, Trinidad, in the Caribbean, and so they're looking at those factors of those environmental factors, that the impact on the people that live there. And they're just getting that information now, or building up that the data there. So I mean, it could be many different factors, but one thing that I will say is that the main factor for our women, with the death of it, I can't speak to specifically like the getting of cancer, but the death from the breast cancer is due to not seeking medical attention earlier, or not keeping up with mammograms and the preventative measures that have been established. That's the big factor of why women are having to reach the point of like chemo and radiation and losing their hair, because they didn't find it out early enough, where it could have been avoided, right? Based off of the treatments. And the reason for, like, our women will for sure die every single time if they wait till they're at stage 4, because by that time it's usually too late. There's nothing else to do. And the treatment itself, when you reach that level of stage 4, is so aggressive. And I feel like, because don't forget that the treatment that is given for cancer in general is poison. It's poisonous to the body. Like, you don't sit there and like, oh, I think I'm gonna have some chemotherapy today, like for the sake of having chemotherapy, right? It's not a smoothie. It's actually poison. You're poisoning your body, because apparently the benefit of killing the cancer is, weighs more than dying from the cancer by not introducing this poison to your body. So it's, but when our women wait to the point where they're at stage 4, the treatment's going to be aggressive, and it's going to be painful. It's going to be really like the losing of the hair, the loss of weight, loss of appetite, all of that. It's going to hit harder. And I think for us as Pacific Islanders, I think the biggest factor with any illness defeating us is when we lose the motivation or passion or flavor for life, because the treatment is so devastating that it's like, they say how important mental health is to, or your mental health when you're fighting any disease. I think that's very true when it comes to these types of diseases that affect our, because I think we have such a hunger and thirst for life. We're passionate about life, living life. We're also fatalistic, when God intended it, that's how it's, but it's like, it's because an illness, it threatens our ability to live life, then we become we feel defeated already. which is
Yeah.
sad because it's like that spark that we have, it just disappears.
For sure. So I know that
Sorry, I
COVID
didn't
just
make up
happened.
sad.
No. I think that being aware is really important,
Mhm.
and I appreciate you letting us and viewers know about this. As far as COVID goes, you know, how was that with the COVID,
Mhm.
dealing with COVID, and then I know that there was also there is work that's been done with our senior populations, which I think is really, really cool and awesome. And then also with some of the work that I think there was a survey that was given out, right, recently in San Mateo County. And like, how important is that as, to collect data from our community? Like, how important is that?
Well, geez, Monica, you just like slam me with all the questions.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
either one. Either
So
one.
okay. Well, I was like, wow, that's a lot. So with COVID, so COVID didn't happen. It's still happening.
Right.
Just because the emergency has been lifted by CDC and what have you. But unfortunately for us, is that it still remains a high risk for our communities because of the vaccination hesitancy,
Right.
and because we just don't do well with getting medical attention when we're supposed to, when we need to. You know, I don't know. I think it's like this idea of fietoa, like trying to be brave, but it doesn't. Yeah, fietoa, you know, and yes, as a little child, it's good to be fietoa, but I mean, you're not weak because you're getting medical attention for a medical need. That's not weakness. Weakness is not getting the medical attention that you have a medical need for, because it exacerbates the issue, right? But COVID, the pandemic itself, definitely exacerbated the inequities and disparities that we as a community have been suffering or dealing with all these years, and it really highlighted that. And based off of how many of our community members we were losing, who were passing away, and and it wasn't just like one person here and there. It was like within families, it was like two people. Like I remember in Southern California, it was a daughter and a father. Because the thing is with COVID is that anyone with any chronic illnesses like diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, those types of things, were it really affected their ability to fight COVID, because it also compromised them so much to the point where they were dying, because this virus is such a game changer when it comes to it messing with the body's structure, like molecular structure and what have you. And we're still dealing with that, because God bless us, but we are fatalistic people, and there's this belief that if God intended it, that's how it should be. Well, God also blessed us with doctors, with medications, with people who know better than we do, who and there's beauty in our culture, beauty in our people, and our traditions and what have you. But when it comes to in my eyes, dying for my perspective is like dying from stupidity or stubbornness or whatever. It's like that's what hurts the most, is because if you were doing this work, Monica, like it with Taulama, for instance, and it's to others it might seem, oh, that's a simple fix or whatever, but it's not, because it's a constant training, education, re-education, just reminding and having, and we're very, like, we don't air our dirty laundry, so it's like we can't always use real lived experience examples, because people don't want to share necessarily what's happened to them with everybody in the world. But it's like, for once, can you just just for this, how about if you just take what the doctor says as truth and then go from there? But our people are.
No, I was just about to ask you. You made a great point. I know me and Monica, we had a discussion, I think a couple of podcasts ago about, we're talking about obesity and epidemic within our community, right? But that's something I always hear when you talk to Tongans about our health and going to the doctor and trying something new. That most of us are religious. Most of us, are very religious. And then you explained it about how we're very fatalistic.
Yeah.
That their justification of not making any changes is, when my time comes, my time comes.
Yeah.
And I understand it from that point, but for me is, when your time comes, but if you can prevent it, then that's not your time.
Right.
All right, it's preventable, right?
Exactly.
All right, so
thank you, Will.
that's the way I, that's for me. It's that's the rational way I see it is, obviously we can't control certain things in life. We can't control what happens to us. It is what it is.
Right.
But we can't control but there are things that we can prevent, and I don't think God purposely wants us to kill ourselves a lot faster than the plan that he intended us for.
Yeah.
All right. Especially when it comes to cancer, especially when it comes to things that's preventable, like smoking, drinking, the things
Diabetes.
that eating, diabetes,
Yeah.
Eating unhealthy foods, eating processed foods. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to have that conversation because how you gonna question their God, when in the minds of the Tongans, right? You questioning, for me to have that conversation with them, you questioning God's plan.
Yeah.
I'm not questioning.
No,
God's
I'm not.
Plan.
Right.
I'm questioning your plan. That's
exactly. Exactly. It's not God's plan. That's your plan. There's a difference.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Right.
Thank you. And I think that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Because we're not questioning God, because we're all, that's one of the beautiful things is that I believe that as a people, we all believe in God. We all have our religious, beliefs, but that's one way of like accessing our people is like on a Sunday or Saturday, depending on what religion you are. But for the most part, on a Sunday, you'll find everybody at church.
Yeah.
And so that's a given, and that's why Tonga still shuts down on Sundays because we're in 2023 but we still shut down on Sundays. Like I don't even think that we would know what to do if we were open on a Sunday. Like
what to do?
Yeah, I know. It's like even though like we try to do to stay extended hours on Saturday night, even though everything shuts down at midnight, but then we try to, it's like I don't think Tonga would know what to do with itself if it was open on a Sunday. It would
that's major.
It would spin on its head. It would probably be like, I can't handle it. I need the day off.
Yeah, we're so used to having that day off. Nobody, you're not gonna convince them to do anything on Sunday.
Right. You can't make me work. And everyone's used to burning their trash on Saturdays. That's what it is. I miss
burning trash.
I miss that smell. Yeah, on Saturdays, because you clean the house and then get everything ready for the umu, so that Sunday just throw it into the umu and then go to church and then come back and it should be ready.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
And your household is spotless. There's no, But I didn't like it when I was in Tonga when I was younger. But now whenever I'm like with all the controlled fires that have been burning around here, I can sometimes smell and I'm like, I wonder if that's burning trash. It smells like Tonga.
Oh my gosh, dude.
It's the little things. It's the little, smell or scent is like the strongest memory trigger, right? So that's what I remember. But going back to what you had asked, thank you, Will, for pointing out that it's preventable, and it's just because it's you're being. But granted, it's not an easy change, because when one is diagnosed with diabetes, it's a lifestyle change, and it took you up in like a lifetime to get into the habits that you have now. It'll take just as much effort to change those habits, and unfortunately, many people, it's not an easy change, because it's change of diet, change of exercising, right?
Yeah.
And then introductions, because for the most part, medications you'll be taking for like the rest of your life unless you're able to control it. But it's not easy. And the reason, one of the doctors, because I worked at the San Mateo County Hospital too, is that one of my doctors had asked, "What's going on with your people?" I'm like, "What do you mean, my people? What?" And he was like saying, "Why are so many of you having like diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol?" I was like, he goes, "You guys are like," because he's used to seeing like the athletes on football and rugby and all that. He's like, "What's going on? Like, do you guys come here and just get sick?" And I'm like, "Well,
That's
you
real.
must." I was like, "Geez." I know. I was like, okay.
That's
I was
real.
like, we as a people have always been predisposed to these chronic illnesses, diabetes, high blood pressure. However, living in the islands and the lifestyle that we have in the islands has allowed us to keep all those illnesses at bay. Why? Because what are the things that are needed for maintenance or in order to be healthy when you have diabetes and the chronic illnesses? You have to, the diet has to be changed, no processed foods, more greens and vegetables. Number 2 is exercise.
Yeah.
And then number 3 is medication. But for the first 2, in the islands, we grow our food, or we have to raise it, or we have to catch it in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you raise the livestock that you raise, which is for us is just mainly pigs, and you have to grow your own food, or you have to go out into the sea to catch it, you become more
Active.
Not only active, but you feel more responsible. You know, it's like you're not going to eat pig every day just because you raise pigs. You're going to be like, I worked so hard to raise these pigs. I'm not just going to kill them for the sake of killing them. You're going to, for the most part, many of the families will only slaughter the pigs for a big event, like a wedding, a birthday.
Wow.
Special occasion.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You don't eat meat every day like we do here.
Yeah.
Number
Well,
2.
certain times, you know, I was poor, so I'm a little different. I didn't eat meat. Some times,
And then, or chicken, you know. But then if you grow your own food, you don't in Tongan it'd be like kai mau maui, like you don't waste it. You know, like you're gonna like, and anyone that's gonna waste it in front of you, you're gonna be pissed off. You're like, dude, I grew that oofy. You better eat the whole thing. You know, kind of thing. You haven't a feeling of responsibility, right? So, and then if you're gonna go into the ocean to go and catch seafood, it requires a lot of work. You don't just jump in a boat and go. You have to get the nets done, you know, the lines ready, and all. It's a whole process. So you're not gonna you're not taking it for granted, because it's a lot of work to go out into the sea to catch it, whatever. And so in the islands, and then on what you said, Will, about the physical activity aspect, there's our exercise. And then on top of that, here in America, everyone drives pretty much everywhere, right? Yeah. Or call it Uber or Lyft or whatever. In Tonga, like for the most part, you, aside from catching a bus if you're going far distances, like from the bush to town, but everyone walks. And so that's exercise too. And so that has kept all these chronic illnesses at bay. We come to America, and you really don't have to do any physical activity to eat. You know, in fact, you don't even have to get out of the car. You just go through drive-through. Or nowadays, you just order and they deliver to you, right?
Yeah.
So, and then on top of it, it's all processed foods, which our bodies can, and it's like, unfortunately here in this country, the cheaper food is the unhealthy food. The healthier food is expensive, and many can't afford that. Like fresh vegetables, fish.
Lucy, I wouldn't even call it unhealthy food. I would call it poison.
Yeah.
I would call it poison.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just a poison that tastes good.
If you look at the chemicals,
good tasting poison.
Yeah. If you look at the chemicals they use, it's literally poison.
And you know what's funny?
And some of these products don't even have. It's not even anything organic or natural in there. It's literally just like all chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What were you saying, Monica?
I was, so we actually had talked about, I actually had mentioned that, like, with the whole like eating situation, like when we talk about food in our community, right? It's so weird. It's such a taboo and such a stigma sometimes, because it's like we have to, like when we talk about food, we want to always respect it. Because in that aspect, how you said, like in Tonga, like it's hard, food is hard to come by. So to waste it is like, so, so then there's abundance of food, right? It's kind of like, we have to be thankful for that. Like, it's not a bad thing, right? Like, it's such a switch up here, because it's like, we're coming from at one point, like if your parents are from the island, right? You come from one point and then you come, or yourself, one point where you see food as like, this is a gift, right? And then to another point where you come here to the US and you're like, you still think it's a gift, but in America, we all know that this is not really a gift, and we have to only meet it in a certain amount before it becomes not a gift. Like, it becomes more of a burden.
You know what I just realized, Lucy?
Mm-hmm.
In Tonga, most people didn't have fridges. We just had freezers. Because there's no point in having a fridge, because we ate everything. There was no left.
Exactly.
So, but we needed a freezer to freeze all the meat, like the pigs, all the big meat, the CP,
or in the fish. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was no such thing as leftover. You know what? This is leftovers. I'll save it for tomorrow. Like, there's no such thing, because we ate everything.
Right.
And most of our meals, like during the week, were literally like ufi and then the greens, like blue, but no meat in it. That's why there's coconut milk, and it makes it ngako, but in good way, because it's not mayonnaise.
Yeah, it's good,
but
good
it's the good stuff, and it's healthy for you. But there's homes that I like. I used to love to go eat at their home versus eating at my home, because I don't know. It seemed like it was so much more closer, and they would have like the oil from frying something, and then they would just eat it with manioke, with yuca. And it was so good. It was like the best meal ever. But it was, I think it had more to do with being together as like a family, and just partaking in what we had, like not making it such a lavish thing that we had lu, and we had waka, and but just being appreciative of what we had, and it was enough.
Even the milk, we didn't need a fridge for the milk, because there was a milkman, who would just come around, and we'll get the milk, and then we'll boil we'll pasteurize the milk ourselves.
Yeah.
And but then we'll drink everything. Like, there was no leftover milk for the next day. So I just realized that. I was like, wait, we didn't have any fridges, because we ate everything. We just had freezers to freeze all the meat.
This is to me, and I have to say, it's like a whoa, because I was born and raised out here. So when you say milkman, I'm like, in the movies, like, really?
No, he didn't have a uniform. It's just a guy named Sione that walked around.
Named Sione.
With a gun, with a bucket, like a regular bucket full of milk.
Yeah, it was. And then you, like, because you're going to pasteurize it, it wasn't like, oh my God, it's not sanitized. No, because you're about to pasteurize it, so that'll be sanitized.
Yeah.
And besides, these kids nowadays are like, oh no, I need hand sanitizer. I was like, we ate mud and we're still alive.
Right. That's and I think for the most part, like, not having the body be accustomed to certain things, right, is probably worse in a sense. So,
right. Yeah. Well, because our bodies weren't made to process or to digest this processed foods.
Yeah.
And so, when we're younger, we could eat, but as time goes on, and our bodies, every function in the body has a lifespan, and they become weakened at any time in our lives, right? Some have longer lifespans than others. Like, I could drink milk like nobody's business when I was younger. Nowadays, lactose intolerant, can't do it.
Yeah.
But like, I've reached them. And then there's other people, like broccoli, for instance, used to be able to eat it like nothing. Nowadays, it's like, can't do it. Or or bell peppers. Wow. But because the function, there's different functions in our bodies have a lifespan. If we abuse it too much, then it goes kaput. It doesn't, like with diabetes, it's because, people could only process the glucose for so long, and then finally their body just like, okay, can't do it no more, can't make the insulin, can't, whatever it is. And so then now they have to rely on dialysis or medications. But I think if we understood that, then we would probably be more appreciative of when we have those functions, and then not take it for granted, and then appreciate that we had it when we lose them. And I'm saying that in a very general way, but if you sat there and thought of all the functions that your body does just to on a day-to-day basis, you'd be like, damn, and then and when you account for the functions that aren't as strong as they were when you were younger, then you realize how much you've overused it. Like drinking alcohol, right? That's not good for the body anyways, but our bodies can handle it to a certain amount. But when I was younger, I could drink, till 5 a.m, sleep for an hour, and go to work, and like nothing happened. Nowadays, and don't even get me started about a hangover. Like, I'm done for like the next 5 days. Don't even bother me, because my body doesn't. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, so I can't handle it.
You're already asleep. You're already asleep by 9.
Man.
For real. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Can we go now? And then I remember going to like Jack in the Box, at 2 a.m. It's like that was the after party kind of thing, because you're waiting in line to go get your food. I can't even handle that Jack in the Box. I'm like, ew, gross. Like, because I know I will pay for it, and it used to taste so good before, but nowadays it's like, oh no, it's like indigestion and all that nasty. I'm good. I'm getting old. We're getting old.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's great that we're talking about this, because I think that there is an uprise in diabetes, right? And also tobacco. Taulama does a lot of work with tobacco prevention. And for the most part, I think like tobacco is just one of those things where we do to de-stress ourselves, right? The same thing, like, how do Tongans de-stress, right? Or even Polynesians in general, how do we de-stress? Like, that's a good question. What is the ways we de-stress? Like,
is there a word? The thing is that there's no word for stress in Tongan, so we wouldn't even know how do we take a
break?
Understand that concept.
How to relax.
There is now a word for stress, but it's not one that in Tongan, but it's one that I have to look it up, but it wasn't thought of until we came to Muli, to other countries outside of Tonga, because it doesn't exist in Tonga for us, because we don't pay rent, we don't have to pay mortgage, and the whatever you call stressors in Tonga, what would equate as a stressor really isn't a stressor. It's just like part of life. It's not like to the levels that we have here. Like the levels that we have here in America or other countries outside of Tonga is, it's like true fears that like they offend or are jeopardizing the basic needs of any human being: food,
water,
shelter. So like that whole the hierarchy of needs, like the very basic needs, like food, shelter, safety, that's what's being threatened when we come. We don't know that, or our families didn't know that when they first came to, but that's exactly what we're faced with, and how we that's when the fight or flight response comes really active, because we didn't have that in Tonga. So that's why we're like, it was good lifestyle there, and then we come to America and it's like stress up the yin yang.
Yeah.
What was you said there's a Tongan word for it?
Yes, I'm going to. Yeah, but you guys talk. Give me a minute. I'll look it up for you.
No, I think that,
I don't say it often. I just say stress.
I think that's why also a lot of the older generation don't believe in mental health. Yeah. Because how are you gonna translate that in Tongan into mental health?
Is there not a word for mental health in Tongan?
There's not a word.
Damn.
So you would have to explain the concept. So if you talk about, that's why if you you bring up mental health, they'll be like, go ahead, man, mom.
Yeah.
They don't really understand mental health, and I understand it, because in the islands, like the way Lucy just explained, everybody just live their life. They'll it's just part of life, if you're going through some kind of hardship, it's just part of life. But she made a great point that we don't have the things. There's always a place for you to go live. There's always food.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't have to worry about that. But here, if you don't work in this, capitalistic economy, if you don't work, if you don't pay your
And
bills.
even the person.
Yep. Yeah, if you don't work and pay your
But
bills,
even
you
our
can be
even
out of
the
food.
quote unquote homeless.
Oh.
But even the homeless in Tonga aren't really homeless. They're just
They're just
they've
not.
been paid, like they ask for money, but they're just not wanting to be at home. They just want to stay outside.
Yeah. There's
But
always a
it's
place for them to go back. They can
they're
always go back.
homeless.
So
That's amazing.
I didn't see any homeless when I was in Tonga. Like I didn't know the concept of being homeless until I came here in America. And I was like, and I saw people in the streets, and then I asked them, like, what is that? They're homeless.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's like, why don't you just go home?
Oh my God.
Just go home.
They're homeless. Okay. I
Yeah,
can see that.
because it's true. Because even the ones that I mean, even the person that we saw as like quote unquote being homeless, like we all knew that they had a home. Everyone could tell you where they live.
We all knew where they live.
It wasn't like a
We all know
secret.
where they live. We all know
Yeah.
where you live. Bro, your house down the
And then when you
street
get
is
fed
from-
up with them always bugging you,
Yeah, so there was all and even if you don't want to go home, there's like you always go live at your uncle's house, your auntie's house. You don't have to ask for permission here.
Yeah.
Like in America, you have to call in advance if you're going to visit somebody. Even though for some family members, you have to call in advance. But in Tonga, I can just show up at my uncle's house and go live there, and he wouldn't. I wouldn't have to tell him anything.
Yeah. I had a cousin, and I remember him saying like, yeah, in Tonga, we just leave our doors unlocked.
Yeah.
And it's such a it's such a funny thing for me to hear, because I'm from here. I was born and raised here. And I said, unlocked? You better lock your door.
Do you know
you gotta lock that door.
our prison doesn't even have a fence.
See? Okay.
Yeah. But the reason why is it's such a it's such a small
it doesn't have a
island.
fence or it's like literally like two pieces of wood. Like
It's such a small island,
you can't
right?
escape.
So even if you escape, everyone knows where you live.
You're not gonna go too far.
Yeah, so like everyone knows where you live. Everyone knows.
And everyone's gonna know where you're going. Everyone knows where you're gonna go.
Yeah.
So it's
And like
it's not
like prisoners don't even leave because it's like what's like where are you gonna go? That's why our police don't have guns. They don't even have batons.
Oh,
They only have
if
their
you do
fists.
escape,
And they don't
Yeah,
even
if
wear
you do-
boots. They will generally.
Silipa. But even if you do escape,
Hmm?
the punishment is once they find you, they'll just die you. Like they'll beat you up to the point like, hey, don't ever do this again.
Oh,
And that's
man.
And that's worse. So they're like, you
Yeah.
know what? I don't need a fence.
I mean,
Guys just stay in prison until they serve their term, and then once they're done, they'll go home.
Okay, that makes sense. And,
Yeah.
I could
but
totally
it's
understand
like
that.
they don't have the criminal system that we have here in America with like prisons and life
Yeah.
sentences, or that we don't. Tonga doesn't have that.
Yeah.
And like being from here and growing up here in America, it's like, well, they should, but there have been murders in Tonga, like, but I think Tonga handles itself when it comes to that type of crime.
Mhm.
We're
Yeah.
dealing with that. So the word is okay. Here's mo'ui oku hoha'a mo ta'e manonga. That's the translation for stress.
Wow, that sounds like a sentence.
Yeah.
It's because it's not a word that existed in our language, but it was Togeta, what's his name? I had his name, and then he's the leading mental health doctor in Tonga, and he's the one that's been trying to get put together the vocabulary for medical and mental health terms and producing that because like what Will was saying about mental health, many of our Tongan community, like back in Tonga especially, the idea of mental health was the extreme on the spectrum, like schizophrenia. That's why this is so stigmatized, because when you talk about mental health, many Tongans will immediately associate it with schizophrenia or Down syndrome.
Yeah.
Probably like equating to what is now identified as autism, but like the nonverbal kind.
Yeah.
And so that's because they would call it in Tonga, like back. I don't know if you've heard. Remember? Is it OTC or
ODA?
Oh, there you go. The center that they had for, I guess, would be the institution that they would place these individuals into because their families couldn't handle them or take care of them.
Yeah, we had one of my family members went there.
Yeah.
It's a center where you send mentally disabled or physically disabled kids, I think.
But they're more like developmentally disabled, like so but it could be it's developmentally also possible, like physical disability, like as far as what you call it, what's the thing called? I can see it where they're in a wheelchair, and it's not because of any mental, it was because of lack of oxygen when they were born.
Paralyzed.
They are partially, but what's it called though? What's that called, Monica?
Where they're in a wheelchair and
it's
they're
because
not.
of lack of oxygen it's because of a lack of oxygen when they were born that caused them. Huh? They don't have anything wrong with their mental functions. It's their physical, and it's because of lack of oxygen when they were born. Oh God, I can't think. I'm having a brain fart.
No. Hold on.
But yeah, speaking of stress, that is the word that was thought of for stress, and that's like a mouthful. But that's a brochure that we have that Lefa translated or created to address stress in Tongan. I could send this to you just for your FYI.
Okay.
But it's very challenging because she does translations and I do the reviewing part, which is funny because I speak Tongan, but not as well as I probably should, and not to the level that Lefa speaks. But I understand I understand it. Huh?
It's a hypoxia. That's what I see here.
Right.
Yeah.
But what do they get from that? What's it called that they become?
I think I know, but it's off the top of my tongue. Oh, cerebral aphasia.
I'm having a brain fart. I'll probably remember when. There you go. Cerebral palsy.
Yeah, cerebral palsy. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I was
it.
like, it's lack of oxygen when they're born, but they don't have it.
Right.
But it doesn't. It's not their mental state that they don't. They have their full mental function, but because of their physical disability, families could not or would not keep them in the household. So it's various developmentally and all that. But even like in our culture, in the Tongan culture, they would describe it as Pukefrate Volo, and that had to do more with like the spiritual world. But I mean, I'm not Farifia devil, like I'm not scared of that. But I believe in the truth in it, because in not Fa devil, but it's just the connection between us and our ancestors or the spirit world, because there's been times where people like they would have like massive migraines, and then they would go to the cemetery or to their cemetery and then exhume the body, and they would find like a root growing through the family member's head, and then when they took out the root, the person didn't have migraines anymore. Have you heard that, Will?
Yeah, I saw a different case. I think one of my younger cousins, he just started. I was about, I think I was about 10 when this happened, but I just remember I was 10. He was about 4 or 5 years old, and he just had uncontrollable rage. And I think we found out later that one of his somebody in his family from his father's side was the one that caused it, and then we had to go to his grave and dig it up and pour oil, like made from a special plant, sprinkle it on his grave, on his bones, because I remember now, I guess the devil, the ghost, was playing with him. Was playing with I think, but it's from his dad's side. He was playing with them, and then but that caused the issues that he was having this uncontrollable rage. So we had to hold him down. Then we figured out which family member it was, and we went to his grave and we just poured some oil on his bones, and then he left him alone. And then he felt better, and then he had no memory
recollection of
he had no memory or recollection of what happened.
That's major.
Yeah,
I've heard
family usually, and people will sleep at the cemetery with them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
we have that type of attachment. Huh?
Yeah,
I would be scared to do that. But that's because, I think that in Tonga, and like just Tongan people, like our origins of that's, I mean, maybe this is like because I've been, and been in America, and so we're just so scared of things that we can't see. Like I'm scared of things that I can't see. If I don't see it, if I don't, if it's not real to me, I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. Whereas in Tonga, like there's probably more folks there that are more in tune with like the spiritual world, and where, if they don't see things,
it's a norm
there.
Yeah.
Right.
It's treated as a normal thing. And but yeah, I can relate. I can understand why someone who, if it's not a part of what you grew up knowing, then it would be terrifying. I could see that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just logically, if you believe in God, then that means there has to exist the opposite, which is the devil and spirits.
But even the devil was an angel.
I know.
We had like at my high school, we had a Satanics club. We had a Satanics club. They were allowed to do a Satanics club at San Francisco High School because there was a Christian club. So, and policies and why, so you're allowed to do that. And it was just so happened that one of the students was in my class, and he actually started the club. Right. And I had asked him, I was like, dude, like, why did you start that? And he gave me this answer that I thought was really, really crazy and interesting. But you can see it now a lot in like media and all that stuff. But basically, he's like, Satanism, or people that are satanic, what they believe in is that if they show you that this is bad for you, if they show you, right, that this is bad for you, and you still decide to go to it, then it's not anybody, then that's suicide. Like say, if I have a sign that says, don't go in here, this is going to kill you. And the person sees the sign and they still go in there, right? Even though they know the sign, Satanics believe that person, that's life.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of crazy because like, when it comes to like our perceptions nowadays, right? We have this absolute perception that, if this is bad for you and you did it, like, then it's automatically an individual fault, it's an individual fault, right? And kid you not, anybody that's out there, you can look that up. A lot of that's the satanic belief that if you know that it's bad for you and you still do it, then that's your fault. Then that's an individual fault at fault. But it's funny because we, in this society, in the society that I grew up in, I can say this for a fact, in the US, everything's individualized. We are individualistic people. We have to all just believe that, you know, if they fell down the hole, they fell down the hole and they saw the sign and they fell down the hole. So that's why I think it's interesting how we're talking about this, right? And we're talking about, you know, what happens in Tonga. And, you know, as in Tonga, because before I feel like before Christianity came, like we're more so of a community, you know, and so I don't know. I just have these different ideas about it.
Well, I mean, one thing that I will say that I really appreciate about our culture is that, and it has its benefits and its pros and cons, but in our culture, the group is more important than the individual.
Right.
While in the Western civilization, it's the individual is always the most important. And so I think that speaks to the challenges that we as Pacific Islander Americans, whether we identify as that, but that we're Pacific Islanders who live in America and have to exist in this culture, the challenges that we face daily trying to exist in both realms because they're polar opposites in many ways, and trying to satisfy both realms, which in itself causes a great deal of stress, identity crisis type of things. And, you know, where one questions one's identity and one questions what they want to be when they grow up in life, you know, which I'm still trying to figure out. But it's beautiful and challenging at the same time to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great that we're having these conversations. I know it's kind of hard. And I think me saying this about the St. Tanis Club, it's probably still at Samsa High School, to be quite honest, because that's, you know, this is America. You can have a St. Tanis Club at high school. And I know a couple of folks that are my friends that, you know, like, I want to raise my kids outside of the US and all this stuff because there's so many things that are happening here right now. But all I can say is, you know, with Taulama having this nonprofit here for Pacific Islanders has been just such a gift and a gem when it comes to health education. And I think health education is so important because it brings community. It shows that, like, hey, you know, as much as we want to say that we all have to take accountability for ourselves, as much we can say, like, let's do this as a group. Let's do this as a community. Let's learn together, even if this makes us uncomfortable. You know, this makes us comfortable to talk about this. Let's talk about it together in smaller groups. I don't know. Like, I feel like, Lucy, like doing the tobacco work that I've done so far with Taulama, and being able to do this with this great nonprofit, I felt like smaller groups are just way more easier for like our community to talk about like things like tobacco, right? So when we talk about tobacco, it's like, you're talking about something I like to do at lunchtime. You know what I mean? When I want to take a break, want to take a, you know, like, but when it's a smaller group, it's just so much easier for us to have these conversations rather than a larger group. Because if it's a larger group, then it's just like, you know, I don't know if I'm going to say something wrong, and I don't know half these people. But when it's like a smaller group of like 4 or 5, right? It's better. What do you think, Lucy? I've seen that. I think.
Yeah, I think. I mean, there's the fear of speaking in public, you know, especially when you don't know the other people. But I think it also speaks to how the group, like the whole, is more important than the individual. In that, you know, fearing that whatever your views are may not align with what the group or the community views, and so we're never, you know, it's like this thing of we're supposed to always be humble and respectful, and so if we don't want to place ourselves separated, you know, like to separate ourselves, we need to follow a line with what the group wants, and so what having smaller numbers means, the likelihood of voicing something that is collectively the same agreed upon viewpoint, but if you have a bigger group, the odds are against you.
Right.
I just have one question for Lucy.
Mhm.
If you had, obviously we talked about all the work that you do
Everything.
yeah, everything. Right, but obviously, and I've had multiple podcasts this before with other Pacific Islanders, and we always talk about how can we progress forward in America. Obviously, there's a lot of things with our traditions, with our culture. We're trying to figure out a ways to navigate in the Western world, because the Western world is different from Tonga, and I think you can't. I mean, living here in America is totally different from living in the islands, and I think one of the things we always talk about before is like you can't live the same way in Tonga and living here in America if you want to live a good quality of life, right?
Mhm.
So we have taxes, we have bills, we have we have to pay rent. It's totally
Or
different.
just survive.
And we're just trying to, we're barely surviving. So if you can, obviously you can maybe go outside the culture, do something different. But if you had to pinpoint one thing, based on all your experience working with Taulama and then basically your experience working with Tongans, I already have my opinion about it. But if you had to pinpoint one thing that if Islanders or Tongans could pursue or improve, then that could kind of help out a lot of the things that we struggle with.
Thank you for asking that question. That was a very thoughtful one.
Yeah.
And it speaks to actually what Monica had mentioned before when she threw all those questions at me at one time. So we did a survey of Tongans in San Mateo County. It's a community assessment of needs, one that has never been done before in any county, especially specifically for Tongans. And in San Mateo County, the Tongans are one of the biggest communities, aside from the Samoan community, as far as Pacific Islanders go. And because we have so many health disparities and facing so many issues, right? And so we're in the middle of analyzing the data and pulling out the recommendations. But based off of the preliminary analysis that I have done with the data and the information that we gathered from all of these community members, Tongan community members, is that, and I've said it many, many times to many people all over like many different instances, but you can't know how to play the game if you don't know the rules.
Oh man, that's facts. True.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we come to this country with the idea or the hope of achieving this quote unquote American dream, whatever that is for that person or that family. However, that's the only thing we come with. We don't come with a manual. We don't come with any idea of what is what's the norms here, here in America. We don't even come with the understanding of what life looks like here. What are the necessities? How do you get those necessities met? What are the different steps to achieving, to even achieving the American dream? It's all a very trial and error experience journey. And unfortunately for us, the trials and errors are too many, to the point where we're not surviving. We're not thriving. We're not even being successful. We're barely surviving, like you said, Will. And so what do we need? And I think in general, it should be for all of America because it's lacking in many other different cultures, but specifically for our community here in this country, in order to reach a level of beyond surviving, but thriving. And that includes prolonging our lives, because in San Mateo County, Tongans actually are the youngest ethnic group that's dying in this county,
Right.
and then and we're dying 20 years younger than the next ethnic group, which is the Black or African American community. We're dying at 65, and the next ethnic group that's dying is at 85, which is the African American, and that is insane. Like, we're dying. Like, if you think about it, we're not even making it to retirement. So what's in my mind? I'm like, so then what's the point of investing in retirement if I'm going to die?
We're not even reaching the average life expectancy, right?
Right.
No, not even that. We're like 20 years before.
Yeah, that's concerning. If we're below average.
That's beyond good. So what I think, in order for our community to reach that level of thriving, people are like, oh my God, that's so elementary or what have you, or basic. But in all honesty, cannot play the game if you don't know the rules. And I believe that what we need as a community is to get that financial training, like the simple, like the formula that 30% of your income should be, that's rent, 50% is, like, this is for food, this is for essential bills like electricity, food, grocery, gas for your car insurance. So we could learn how to budget, because we don't know how to budget. But we need to have these financial classes with financial experts who understand our culture. Because, like I said before, you could take the girl out of the island or the boy out of the island, but you can't take the island out of the boy or the girl, because we'll forever have the fatongia and the kavenga that we have, and we will always place that in the highest priority over our own food, our own housing, bills that we need to, like, people will send money to Tonga, because they need it or what have you. And so having financial experts that are training us or teaching us these financial responsibilities, but understanding it will always be a priority. So don't negate it. Like, don't dismiss it like it's something stupid that we're doing, because it's part of our culture. It defines us in many ways. Yeah. And so having those types, then having because parents still have to be involved in the child's life, right? They can't just, oh, you're going to school, then and I have to work, and your father has to work, so then you figure it out, or have the older siblings take care of the younger ones. Like they need to be kids too, right? But having classes for parents to help them understand the educational system, so they know how to navigate it, because it's not easy, and understanding yelling at your child, parenting skills, what's allowed in Tonga does not fly here and is not allowed in America. Like, you'll get in trouble and go to jail. You cannot beat your kid up, like that.
Did you see that Facebook video? Did you see that Facebook video? Did you see that Facebook video?
I didn't see it. I don't want to hear it. I didn't see it, but I barely heard about it. I have the reason why, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off like that. I wanted, because I don't know why, but I'm very empathetic to the point where I have nightmares. Emotional, I'm devastated so I don't watch the commercials for the SPCA or children that are in Africa starving or whatever.
Or
I have to change.
Very, very graphic for it's too much.
And so I, my family, I will, if I do, I will sit and cry, and I'll be devastated for so long. I don't know why. I just absorb a lot of emotional stuff from people, which is, I guess, but it's very challenging and it's very exhausting for me. So I try not to, if I can. I don't even watch the news anymore, because it's too much most times. I'm just very, what's the word, empathetic or whatever you want to call it, but I feel too much, way too much. But so classes like that, parenting, because when it comes down to it, no parent knows how to parent. Because why? When we were born, we did not come with a manual. There wasn't, and many of our parents either didn't have parents to, copy, or because they were raised by aunties, uncles, grandparents, not their own. And and parenting is not, it requires skill, and not any person can just wake up, have a kid, and they're like, okay, I know exactly how to be the best parent. We're not easy as children, and it's not easy for parents. So I'm not giving them a free pass, but trying to understand people cannot give you what they don't have, and they don't know what they don't know. And so we as hopefully better generation or more enlightened need to be able to understand that and to afford grace to others and to our parents and to our it's one thing to say, oh well, they should have known better, but if they didn't know, then they don't know. They're never going to know better.
Right.
I would say that's what we need.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry if I cut you off. No, you explained it. No, you explained it like financial literacy and learning skills and learning about new things. I think the one thing that could solve all the issues within our town and culture is just pursuing a higher education and making that a priority. With the. And when I say education, I don't necessarily mean going to a 4-year degree or going and pursuing a PhD. I mean like learning skills. Right, whatever it's a trade school, you don't need to go to college to learn about financial literacy, about learn how money works, those things. But I think, like you said, there's a lot of us are just doing things by default, by just doing things. If we don't know anything, we just imitate what everybody else was doing, or we just imitate what our parents, what we saw growing up. So we have to kind of step outside and kind of, if we pursue our education and learn this information, because the information is out there. That's the beauty about America. We have the internet. Everything's on the internet. You can learn about everything that and find a solution to anything that we experience here in America. But the one thing I do look at different cultures, even if you look at the Asians, if you look at the Indians, if you look at if you look at
the education at a high priority.
Yeah, look at the Jews, right? Statistically, their families do well. The average income is, the Asians and the Indians are up there, and the Jews as well. And usually,
but I will say this much: I hear what you're saying, and I agree that education is important. It's key. It's power. However, not that we're a special case, but I want to challenge that in saying that, to remind ourselves of where we're at as a community versus those other groups that you have mentioned, and as far as the way the community functions, the responsibilities or the priorities of the community that you're speaking of, compared to the priorities and the how we function as a community or as a culture. And although yes, education is the answer to it, but the achievability of getting that education, that's where there's a huge difference, because although there may be similarities between the cultures, but to really look at the priorities that each of the cultures hold high, hold dear to their hearts, because that will always dictate the achievability of anything that we say should happen, like whether it be education, like prioritizing education. But why don't we prioritize it? Because there's other things in our culture that are more important to us than education, even though we know that it's important and that you get financial freedom that way and whatever. But as a culture, we will always hold like our fatongia, our kabenga, or our ties to our families, the families that we have back in the islands, as higher priority than any. And even though that anything that we as an individual may want to achieve, and even though our ability to achieve some will benefit the whole family, but if it doesn't benefit them now, then it's kind of null and void, because we only live in the now. Like that's why like retirement, like putting away from, is such a far-fetched idea for our people. We don't we don't do savings.
What which I agree. I totally agree with everything you said. But the reason, I think is the reason why we live in it now is because we haven't learned about the things about savings, like investing. We haven't learned that information. And when we pursue education, you will learn about those things. Then we can implement it. So I don't think it's gonna come from our generation, from the younger generation, right? But it's gonna take from one single family member.
But I think the
no, all I'm saying
living
is
in the now speaks to our fatalistic.
Yeah, no, I understand. No, I understand. I understand that. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I know it's going to be challenging because I know to pursue your education and to pursue the things that you want and still be able to maintain all the fatongias and the responsibilities that you have to your family. It's difficult. Like even for myself, it's difficult for me to do what I want to do for my life and then still be able to maintain all the things my family expects. And I had to have a conversation with my family with that. But what I'm saying is, I think the way I see it is, if people are going to pursue a higher education, statistically they're going to make more income. And if you are going to have fatongias, if you're going to have things to take care of your family, at least that you make an income where you can give in excess, right? But the problem is right now is we're living right on the poverty line, so we're not giving money to help our families or to fulfill our fatongias out of excess. We're giving the money we're giving the things that we barely survive to take care of the people when we can't barely take care of ourselves. So
and the reason being is because we will always place our families or the needs of the whole be higher priority than the needs of the individual. And pursuing higher education, I agree, but it's a individualistic achievement versus something that's good for, like, yes, it's good for the whole, but eventually it's not because even our children face, like, now they're in high school, unless if you're a boy and you have the potential of going to the NFL, they're gonna like dissuade you from. But most of the boys are normally pushed to go into higher education because of the hopes for that NFL career, which is like not high. But the girls, like, it's hurry up and graduate high school and then hurry up and go to work so you could help it's like the unless it's gonna serve the family good now, it doesn't matter. It's not a high priority, like higher education. And so until we are able to, as a community, like, and I understand, like, it's for the next generation, but and although I am one that was born and raised in America, I still have strong like, I'm still very Tongan in the way that I believe. And so I understand, like, the Western way of thinking, and you're right about education. It's just so hard to place, and I know that education is the best thing for us or for me, but it's so hard to place that doing that over my family's needs from what I can provide. Like, if I get an education and I can provide more, but they're like, but I need you to do this now. And so even though I was born here in America, I'm so tied to my family. Like, I will sacrifice that desire to get higher education so that I could meet their needs now.
Yeah,
I think that's a struggle.
Like I said, when I say pursue higher education, I don't necessarily just mean the 4-year degree. I'm just saying that, like, there's so many ways today to make money. Like, you make money online, on the internet, Spotify. So I'm not saying, like, you have to pursue a 4-year degree, but that's one of the options, right? If that's what they want. But when I say pursue a higher education, is like you said, in order to play the game, you have to know the rules.
Yeah.
So you can still work your job and you can still be able to take care of your family, but at least have, like, a side hustle. You can learn something you do on the side to make extra income. I'm just talking about different ways that you can make money and you help yourself and help your family. It doesn't necessarily have to be education. There's so many ways right now online and different things that people can make money nowadays. That's a great thing about America. But I think
it's also the comfortability that, like, all the things that the option, like, going on, like, if it's not something that's been done before, it's like a maverick idea and it's like for other people to do. But it's like, that's why our women are always, even though they may have even gotten a college degree, but then they're pushed to live in. Why? Because the money's better, because they can get that much money now. and it's like
Yeah,
the degree, but they have the it's what's
Well,
the
it depends on
social
degree,
norm
right?
within the culture, huh?
It depends on the degree they pursue. So if the degree they pursue is not a career path that makes a lot of money, then
Well,
then live in it would be
I mean,
making more.
a degree.
well,
Yeah,
I
but
would
the
say
limit, yeah,
what I
live in
hear
it's always
right
more.
now is, do you both think that there should be more programs within our community to help our our children or young adults, right, veer into career paths that have a substantial amount, that pay well, right? Because I feel like right now I hear that like money really is the way that we support our families, because we believe in family and we believe in the support of family. So would more support in varying our not even kids, like even adults, like into jobs, like more jobs that are more substantial, that pay a good amount, to have these individuals like support their families first, would that be a good move when it comes to like supporting this particular community, in terms of like financial, right? Like I feel like job stability, I hear job stability, I hear financial right now, and would
Financial,
more
but like
Mhm.
I mean, I would say, and I'm trying to meet our people where
where
they're
they're
at,
at, right?
versus with the Western way is we will build and they will come. That's not how our people work. It's like we have to meet them where they're at. And unfortunately, as as evolved as we are, or as enlightened as we are, if I'm here at A and they're still at E, they're not going to meet me. I have to go to them. I have to go to E, and that's why one of the reason why Taulama has lasted or been in existence for as long as we have, and the reason why we have been, I wouldn't say successful, but at least we're not unsuccessful. I guess we haven't failed completely in addressing these health issues with our community, is that we meeting, like for instance, everyone goes to church on Sundays, so then that's where we know we will get a hold of them and have their undivided attention, because if you're at church and I'm at church, then you have nowhere to go because you have to be there, so I got you.
Right,
But,
right.
so I would say it would be, because I've seen this so many times, is that people have these ideas, oh, we'll just have these classes, but if those classes or doesn't fit into their day-to-day their life routine, and if they're not, and I'm sorry, but our culture, our people are just like, they're not going to change their day-to-day just because there might be a better way of, because it hasn't been proven to them, or other people haven't done it. That's why we stick to the same lanes, all the like live in and airport, working at the airport, and NFL dream, and because these are lanes that have been used,
Proven.
like for proven, and even if when they failed, there have been successes that each of us, like each so yes, it will take the next generations to step outside the box, but if you're talking about helping the community that we exist in now, I would probably put it more into figuring out, like what I said about the classes, and then because even I know that these are things that are needed by our community, because that's why we keep we're not succeeding, but I also know that we have to think of how are we going to get these classes to them. They're not going to come to us, and they're not going to do it just because we tell them. We have to make it where it's a buy-in from like the faith-based leaders, so that way we can bring it to them at church, because everyone's comfortable with church because they are familiar with church. So that's where we would need to get that's where I would bring this training or these education.
You got to bring it before they eat after church, because they're going to be asleep.
Yeah, or use food to keep them in.
Right.
That's what we do. That's so bad.
Maybe.
No, you give them an appetizer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Give me an appetizer
then-
to start off.
Yeah, but the appetizers that we do are like might as well be a meal.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
appetizers like it's a full meal for some people.
Right. No, I think that's so real though. Church is a big thing, and I think church in our community is everything, and that's where you're bound to meet the folks where they are at is in church, church leaders, right? Getting it started in faith-based communities because that's what our community is about.
Yeah.
It's faith.
Yeah.
And so I think, I feel like this is a great conversation because I feel like on one end there's this education on the other, and Lucy, you're always about Lucy knows this community, the real deal, and it's right. You're right about meeting the community where they're at right now is it's money. It's that financial stability right now. Just like most, in the beginning of the start of the podcast back up again, we talked about like the oppression. We talked about, our group, right, where we're at, right. And positionality. And like, it's just, it's kind of amazing sometimes to me as like somebody that's an observer, right. I don't know a lot, I'm always asking questions because I'd like to know more. Because I'm a learner.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Yes. I'm a learner forever. And I think it's just it's interesting to hear this because I think like what we've conversated till now and hearing like a community advocate like Lucy here, right? Like say these things is really important.
And just to add on to what you said, and we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think it's not. The problem isn't the money. I think it's knowledge. It's the knowledge. Like we don't know what we don't know, right?
Exactly.
I remember I had a conversation with Tongan OG. He owns his own construction business, but he did yacht for almost 15, 20 years. Just the basic worker, and he said that it wasn't until he asked his boss like, how did you start your business? How did you get to where you are today? And once his boss told him how to do it, and then he realized, oh, it's not that it's something that's possible for him to do.
Yeah,
it's achievable. And then he looked back, man, I could have done this 20 years earlier. I just didn't know. Didn't know. Right. So I don't think it's necessary money. I think it's the knowledge because as our people, we have the ability, we can achieve anything. We have the potential, we have the talent, not only in the NFL, but we can achieve anything that we want here.
Like everything. I mean, the other parts of the world that have Tongans, they have doctors and psychologists.
Exactly.
And so many other things.
So it's just a lack of knowledge because once we know how to do it, then it's easy. Then that's why we stick to what we know, like at the airport, because it's what we know how to do. Right. We just don't know the other side, and for that can be very risky for a lot of people to do something.
And fear.
Yeah, fear, right?
And the fear.
And then and you combine that with the culture, with the people might not support them for doing something different. But once you explain to Tongans how to do something, then it's once we pick it up, then it's just we're gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
But they also have to be in the capacity to hear what you are trying to tell them because we're stubborn as hell too. We don't know what we don't know, and then we're stubborn. That's not a very good combination.
Yeah, it takes a certain individual to communicate to Tongans. There's a way you have to communicate to the Tongans, but once we understand something, the concept of something, and we see it is possible to do, then there's nothing holding us back but ourselves. But and also I would say, like Lucy, like I do agree. I do agree that we have to. I think two things can be true. I think we can focus on the now and to meet the Tongans where they're at now, and at the same time we can still push Tongans to pursue skills, pursue knowledge, pursue a higher education. I think we can do both. I'm not saying it's easy. We're hella stubborn. Hella fear.
Don't want to fall. Don't want to fail.
Yeah. Don't want to admit they're wrong.
Right.
Yeah, that part too. That part.
They're never wrong. They're never wrong.
Right.
Never ever.
But Lucy, thank you so much for jumping on tonight. We had a great
Yeah.
discussion, and
We talked about everything. Like we went from
Man.
health to satanic clubs.
yes, Titanic, and
Right.
and our flashbacks,
Education.
our
Yeah.
flashbacks from Toma, all flashbacks
Right.
Mhm.
from
Right.
Toma. I definitely enjoyed this interview.
Yeah. Saturday trash burning.
Trash.
And the trash burning. My friend, she's actually living in Samoa right now. She's married to a Samoan man.
Yeah.
And so she was telling me about that. She was telling me about the burning of the trash. They live in Western Samoa. And she was telling me about that. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, the burning of the trash. We have to, we can smell it. And sometimes they do it at odd hours. And she was telling me, she was, and I was like, damn, that's so crazy. Because she's from out here. She's Hispanic and Filipino. So she's not even an islander. So to her, this is like a whole new world. Like, it's a whole new world.
It's like
So
newsflash. That's like how most of the world was getting rid of their trash before landfills. By the way,
right.
Burn the trash. Yeah.
Burning the trash.
Yeah. But we're
including
definitely gonna
plastics.
have you, Lucy. We're definitely gonna have you in the future. Come into the studio one day.
Are you sure? Because I feel
yeah.
like a complete.
Yes.
Yeah, you gotta come.
Oh my God.
We'll make it happen.
Yes.
We'll make
absolutely.
it happen.
Thank you.
But we definitely enjoyed the conversation. And and next time when you come, I'm gonna have a full bowl here.
Kumete. You better have a full kumete.
Yeah,
And then I want there needs to be like some like lollies there so that I can have it with the kava because it's too
Right.
dry.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
yeah.
something to snack on. You're supposed to give us
Oh,
something
yeah,
to snack on when you drink kava.
definitely have some snacks and
You have
some.
twisties, bongo.
I could get it. I know the Indian store we can get it.
Right.
He hella perked up. He hella perked up when I asked about twisties and bongo.
Oh man, Bongo Twisties.
Right.
This is a store, an Indian store in San Bruno. I always get it. I always buy it from.
Oh, I know which one. Is that the one next to the kava place?
Store too.
Huh?
The one next to the kava place by Artichoke Joe's.
Yeah. That's where I buy my twisties.
Mhm.
I love twisties.
Oh, I like the mixed thing, the one with the peas, dried peas, and the noodles, and
Oh yeah,
these-
that one.
Cool too.
it's a little spicy. Oh, it's perfect
Yeah.
And manioca chips.
with the kumete. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they be having
Talo
everything over there.
too.
Yeah, the manioca chips. I mean, I used to love the manioca chips.
I like the peas, the spicy peas, but it doesn't have everything else.
noodles?
Yeah, without the
Stop.
noodles.
Oh, the noodles.
Don't be racist.
Right. It has to be all together, all or none.
The noodles, the ramen noodles. Oh, they're like
Uh-huh.
chips.
I'll have that ready, Lucy, when you come.
Yeah.
I have some
Do
bongos
it.
and some twisties
Yeah.
and some peas.
That'd be so cool.
Ready.
Yeah.
And don't forget the Chinese lollies.
Oh yes, of course. The Chinese lollies are hella good. Yeah,
Like the prune,
ginger,
the dried prune.
dry prune with the white.
You never had
the
Chinese
white
lollies?
powder.
Well, you never
It's
had
like
Chinese
the
lollies.
lollies and the white powder on it, and it's like a prune, but it's really good.
It's dry.
I gotta see it. If I see
Yeah.
it, I probably recognize it. It's been a while. Yeah. So if I see it, I probably recognize it. And don't forget the Panadol. I'm gonna bring some Panadol. So
Oh my gosh, yes. I would bring you a
Not
bottle.
the Panadol.
Bring
just in
some
case
Kava
somebody
from the
has a heart
pharmacy.
Right.
I'll bring it from the pharmacy in Fossey.
Man.
But yeah, it was great. We had a great interview. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank
Lucy,
you.
any final
I'm sorry.
any final words for
Don't
everybody?
never say sorry.
Yeah, and also, I just want to say, some of you guys been watching this entire stream. Thank you so much for watching. You guys been silent. You guys are watching like a ninja. Yeah, ninja watching. So by night, at least by nightfall, Tater Tom and Melanated Married. I see you guys in the live chat. So thank you for participating on the live chat and commenting on our discussion. So thank you guys. But majority of you guys are just what's the tongue? There's a tongue word for it.
What are you trying to say?
No, it's a vai foul. You know that word? Like, you're just like staring from the distance and being nosy. Ever heard of that word?
No, I haven't. That sounds Samoan.
No, it's called Hawaii Foul. It means like you're like when you people that pull the blinds down just hell.
Okay.
That's
I know
the.
What's it called again?
In
what's it
Tonga,
called?
I remember like Hawaii Foul.
Oh, that did not sound. That's not what it sounded like when what you said earlier. Like, what?
Oh, yeah. You get in there, yeah.
Hawaii foul means like a hole for like where the nail would be, like a
Yeah.
split, like two beams, and they're kind of split, but that's where the nail would have been. You're peeking
Yeah.
through like the hole with this.
Yeah, you're picking, but you're picking from the hole, but you won't say nothing. So
Yeah,
those are the people that's watching right now, not commenting.
the creepers.
Yeah.
They're like creepers.
Yeah, the creeper. Yeah, there you go, being creepy. All right, so at least if you don't comment, at least press the like button and subscribe. But thank you so much, Lucy, Monica. Anything you want to add on?
Lucy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
Like,
Monica.
honestly, I know there's you just are like our goat, so that's greatest of all time. And I really appreciate you being on here and taking the time to come here and like pretty much just telling us about Taulama in depth and just like teaching me. Every time I talk to you, Lucy, I feel like I learn, and I love it. Thank you.
All right, and I gotta give a special shout out to Lucy.
That thing scares me every time. I'm like, thank you, I appreciate it.
Oh, you know what? I'll give her a different one that she likes. It's this one's better. It's Paspasi. All right, Paspasiatu.
Thank you.
That's for you. Paspasiatu.
Thank you.
Lucy. But yeah,
Thank
we'll
you,
plan
Kava.
it. We'll plan the next one, and then we'll make it happen. Okay.
All right.
All right, Lucy.
Thanks, guys.
Papatu. Have a good night.
Batu. Take care.
Okay.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.